Huh? Why won't the key work? One day after work, I found my personal belongings tossed out like trash at the front door. It seemed like the lock had been changed. I was livid. This was the worst thing that had happened during the 2 years I lived with my in-laws. That's it. I swore never to return to this house. I packed my things into my car and headed back to my parents' home. 3 months of no contact later, I suddenly heard from my in-laws. My name is Linda. I'm 35. My husband, 5 years my junior, is named Tim. I'm a career-driven woman, and Tim was actually one of my subordinates. To be honest, I was never interested in marriage. The thought of being tied down to a home or a spouse never appealed to me. I had avoided even dating seriously until now, but I got married because Tim was extremely persistent. He promised I could continue working freely and that he'd handle the household chores, which sparked my interest a bit. Plus, it wasn't that I never wanted children. I had occasionally wondered what it'd be like to have kids. And here I am at 35. I was reaching the age where it's almost last call for having kids. That's why I decided to marry Tim. Initially, it was just the two of us living together. As promised, I had the freedom to do my job my way, and Tim took on the bulk of the housework. Yet, our situation took an unexpected turn. This happened 6 months into our marriage. Tim's dad passed away unexpectedly. His mom and younger sister, Sally, who were shocked by the sudden loss, came to us unable to cope. For the record, Sally is 33, younger than me, and she apparently makes decent money working part-time. But she's always strapped for cash because she's busy with her fan activities or whatever. Why not just get a full-time job? Every time I met Sally, I couldn't help but think that. When Tim was approached by his mom and Sally, he suggested we all live together. Linda, would you consider living with my mom and sister? You can still have freedom in your job, and I think having them around would lighten your share of the housework. What do you think? Well, Tim, the job part is fine, but what about this uncertain factor of maybe less housework? If we're taking them in, they need to handle all the housework, don't you think? Yeah, you're right. I'll communicate that to my mom and sister. Please, will you consider it? I'll think about it when I get a solid answer from your mom and Sally. I have my own life and financial considerations. So I was quite stern with Tim. It might sound cold, but if you're going to take care of people, there's a price to pay. No two ways about it. In the end, Tim secured a promise from his mom and Sally that they'd handle all the housework. I was tempted to ask for it in writing, but I kept that to myself. After all, they're family, and I assumed they'd keep their word. And so, we ended up moving into Tim's family home. Day 1 of cohabitation began. Upon arriving at Tim's family home, I went to greet his mother. As you probably know from Tim, I'll be continuing to work as usual, so I'd appreciate it if you and Sally could handle the housework. Then, without even looking at me, his mother, Ellie, blurted out, "Oh, why on earth did Tim marry someone like you? You're going to work, so we should do all the housework. What kind of wife are you? Normally, a wife would both work and do household chores. It's unbelievable to expect your Mill to handle it all." She made sure I heard all of that before she walked away. Excuse me, this is not what I had heard would happen. Her words made me feel uneasy about the life we'd be living from now on. As we were busy organizing our things, Sally showed up at the door, and then she said, "Well, I've really ended up with an unkind sister-in-law. I feel so sorry for Tim." And with that, she left. Again, first it was Ellie, and then Sally too. I couldn't understand why they had wanted to live with me after saying those kinds of things. As it turned out, they were just after my money. I noticed something immediately after we started living together. After the day when both Ellie and Sally made passive-aggressive comments towards me, they started ignoring me completely. With Tim around, they'd cook meals at least, but they wouldn't do any cleaning or laundry for me. I tried to confront them about breaking our arrangement a few times, but if I so much as said, "Hey Ellie," she'd give me a death glare and walk away. It was as if she had no intention of listening to me at all. Sally did exactly the same, so there was no way I could confront the two of them. As a result, it became routine for me to take care of the neglected cleaning and laundry after returning from work. I wanted to talk to Tim about it, but I started to feel sorry for him and kept my mouth shut. But their behavior escalated. When they ran out of spending money, they started pressuring me for more, and the way they pressured me was incredibly passive-aggressive, leaving notes under the dinner plates. Today, there was a note from Ellie that just said, "We're short this month. Lend $500. I thought about consulting Tim, but he too seemed to be running short due to socializing and bar hopping, and started to ask me, could we cut back on our living expenses this month? Back when he was my subordinate, I made sure he didn't waste money on unnecessary outings. But when Tim changed apartments after we got married, he wasn't able to avoid those extra expenses because he's bad at saying no to social invitations. I couldn't possibly consult him about Ellie and Sally pressuring me for money under these circumstances. So I resigned myself to giving them money, but strictly as a loan. This went on for 2 long years. Tim lost all sense of guilt about not contributing to household expenses, and even though he would still ask me to cut back on the budget this month, he seemed less concerned. Even I had gotten used to this mess. I felt like I was completely under the thumb of Ellie and Sally, but there was something I still kept doing. I'll talk about that later. One evening, after returning from work, I found a heap of stuff piled up in front of the house. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be my belongings. What the hell is this? I was infuriated to see my stuff treated like garbage. Today, I decided to give them a piece of my mind and reached for my keys to unlock the front door, but the key wouldn't go in. Damn it, they did it. Apparently, they had changed the locks while I was away. I'm done with this. As I stood there, staring at my belongings, I pondered what to do next. I noticed another note hidden beneath my stuff. It read, "Don't ever come back. We don't want to see your face. Be grateful we didn't throw your stuff away." Typical of snide Ellie and Sally. Those two are undoubtedly the masterminds. I was curious about what Tim might have said, but by that point, I honestly didn't care. Luckily, I had the car keys with me, so I loaded up as much as I could and headed to my parents' home. Oh, thank goodness my belongings are okay. Won't affect my job tomorrow. With those thoughts, I rushed to my family home. When I arrived, my parents were surprised but welcomed me in. I hadn't been home much in the past 2 years, mostly because of how busy I'd been. Sipping on the tea Mom offered me, feeling a sense of relief, Dad questioned me, "What's the rush? And why all the stuff? Did you run away from Ellie and Sally?" Remember, marriage requires patience. You know, how much patience is Dad talking about? I haven't had a real conversation with Ellie and Sally for 2 years. And when there was a note left, it was usually asking for money. Tim started taking my earnings for granted, acting like I was some convenient ATM. I put up with all that until now. When I told my parents, they said, "Sorry, Linda. Seems like you've been patient enough. No need to endure any further. You've been kicked out. Why go back? Just send him the divorce papers." People change when money comes into the picture. It's a shame. Both Mom and Dad sympathized with me. Tears spilled from my eyes. Something that hadn't happened in these 2 years. "Was it that tough on you?" Dad asked, visibly concerned. "I'm just so happy to finally have someone who cares. I'll follow your advice and send him the divorce papers, but I want to wait a bit. I have a feeling something fun might happen soon, LOL. You see, I felt like some sort of action was around the corner for me, and it surprisingly did come in about 3 months. By that time, I had moved out of my parents' home and into a new apartment all by myself. Never thought the day would come when I could spend all my hard-earned money just on me. For household chores, I've been hiring a cleaning service regularly, so I don't have to lift a finger. Every month, I go on the vacations I've always wanted to take and buy anything I want without holding back. I realize more and more each day just how much money I've been making. I've been wondering what I've been putting up with these last 2 years. I guess I was brainwashed by my in-laws. So, it was exactly 3 months to the day since my locks had been changed and my belongings were tossed out. My smartphone rang. It was a call from someone I never expected. And at first, I planned to ignore it. After ignoring the first call, the second and third calls followed in quick succession. Geez, they must be really desperate. I decided to answer the phone on the next call, and just like that, the fourth call came through. Hello, Linda, where are you right now? I went to your family home, but they wouldn't tell me where you are. Your workplace didn't give me any information either. Tell me where you are. It was Ellie who had been ignoring me for the past 2 years. Hearing her voice again after such a long time, she sounded really worn out. I picked up the phone, but I decided to stay quiet for a bit just for the fun of imagining what Allie would say next. Hello, Linda. Are you there? Come back home and restore our lives. We have no money for going out and having fun. What are we supposed to do now? I thought life would be fine without money for outings, but apparently not. We're at our wits' end. We're about to lose our smartphone service and electricity. Come home now. Does she not realize she's been talking only about themselves this whole time? Shouldn't the first thing be an apology for kicking me out until that becomes clear? I had no intention of speaking. Linda, you haven't said a word. Are you even listening? Don't you feel bad that we're struggling so much? Listening any longer wouldn't bring an apology. So I decided to end the call. I pushed the button and hung up. Ellie clearly doesn't know the meaning of the word remorse. The next day, my phone buzzed with another incoming call. Hello, Linda. Why did you ignore Mom's call yesterday? We're struggling and you're not even trying to help. Mom said she wasn't even sure you were listening. Adults don't just ignore people like that. Ick. Now it was a call from Sally. To be honest, I find calls from Sally to be the most bothersome. And what's this about adults not ignoring each other? For 2 years, they've been the ones ignoring me, and now they suddenly have the audacity to say such a thing. I couldn't comprehend it. I was prepared to listen for a bit today as well, but if there was no apology, I had no intention of speaking. I'm sure you've heard from Mom, but we're financially strapped right now. We're on the verge of losing phone and electricity. If that happens in this heat, we could get heat stroke and die. Are you okay with that? How will we reach you if our phone service gets cut off? That's why I'm telling you to come back and take care of the overdue utility bills. Her comments were so selfish that I continued to ignore her. Hey, are you really listening? You haven't said a word. Are you still mad about what happened 3 months ago? That was clearly a joke. LOL. You're an adult. You should be able to tell when something is a joke. Stop being stubborn and come back. Throwing my belongings out like trash and changing the locks to keep me out basically means don't come back. Calling it a joke or humor at this point is beyond unbelievable. Since Sally had no intention of apologizing either, I decided to end the call. Listening to Sally any longer would be a waste of time. The day after that, finally, I got a call from my husband. Hello, Linda. I'm so sorry. Mom, Sally, and we all realized we did something terrible. So, can you please come back? Our home's falling apart. We're out of money, and everyone's on edge. We truly apologize. Please, come back. It seemed Tim had some intention of apologizing, but it's too late now. Why did I have to be ignored by my own husband for 3 months? If it were only the first 3 days, maybe I would have considered coming back. But 3 months, I had gone back to living my life like I did in my single days. There's no reason for me to return to that household now. Not within laws like that. I'm talking to you because you apologized, but I began. I have no intention of coming back to you, Tim. Why were you out of touch for 3 months? You're my husband. How could you do that? So I did some digging on you. Turns out you were cheating, right? I got the investigation results from the detective agency. Thanks for treating me like an ATM for 2 years. Expect divorce papers and a bill for alimony soon. I hope you handle it. Had Tim thought I wouldn't find out? Silly man. Even then, he asked me to come back. I sarcastically said, if you pay back all the living expenses for 3 people over 2 years and the money I loaned you, then maybe I'll consider. Let's see, that would be around $3,000 with the alimony for the cheating. It's more like $6,000. Can you afford it? I said it with a mocking tone. Well, I knew he couldn't pay, but I said it anyway. After that, he didn't say anything and just hung up. Maybe he finally understood my decision was firm. The story continues after this. After sending Tim the divorce papers and the alimony bill, he promptly returned them with his signature. All that's left is to file these papers with the local government office, and the divorce will be finalized. He even made the alimony payment right away. Actually, I had attached a note to the alimony bill stating that if he didn't pay ASAP, I'd spill the beans at his workplace. He must have been scared enough to possibly take out a loan to pay the alimony. I've heard through the grapevine that their family home is up for sale. Looks like they're struggling to get by and are desperate for some quick cash. But by selling their home, they'll need to pay rent somewhere else. Considering the cost of rent and utilities, selling the house probably wasn't the smartest move. I can easily imagine they were lured by the immediate cash and made a hasty decision. As for what happens to my in-laws going forward, it's none of my business. Now, as for me, I'm thoroughly enjoying the single life I've had my fill of marriage. From now on, I plan to focus on my career and enrich my personal life, cherishing the joys of living alone.